You always think you'll know. When it happens, when something unnatural comes to your door, you think you'll be brave. You think you'll know not to open it. But sometimes they sound just like someone you love. Tonight, 3 true stories, 3 homes, 3 knocks. Don't let them in.
I was home alone the night it first knocked. That's important to understand because I double-checked. My roommate Jamie was gone for the weekend. Her bedroom door was open, lights off, bed made. I even texted her before locking up. Have a good trip. Apartment's all yours when you're back. It was cold out. February, brittle. Wind scraped the windows like fingernails on frosted glass. The hallway heater was buzzing faintly, and I had a kettle on the stove, waiting to boil. I remember all of that clearly, because when the knock came, everything else stopped. 3 slow taps. Not hard, not urgent, but somehow expectant. I paused, looked at the door. We lived on the 3rd floor of a locked building. No one ever came up without calling first. No packages, no random visits. We weren't social. Another knock, just like before. I walked toward the peephole, a little anxious but not scared. Maybe someone had the wrong door. I looked. There was no one there. The hallway was empty, still. The elevator at the far end stood closed, silent. All the lights were on. But as I stepped away from the door, I heard it. A voice. Right outside. Hey, it's me. Let me in. I froze. The voice was soft, familiar, but wrong. I crept back to the door and leaned in, not speaking, barely breathing. The voice came again. Come on. I know you're there. And then, chillingly, you always open for me, remember? I didn't know the voice, but it knew me. I backed up slowly, heart thudding, skin cold. My phone was on the counter. I reached for it, not taking my eyes off the door. A new knock, but not from the front. It came from the bedroom, Jamie's bedroom. I stopped moving. That door had been open. Now it was closed, and something was tapping on it. Light, repetitive, like fingertips. I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Just a knock again. Then the front door voice, now louder this time. "Let me in. You don't want to make me knock again." The kettle whistled, sharp and sudden. I nearly screamed. When I turned to grab it, the knock behind Jamie's door stopped, and the front voice, now distant, spoke one last time. "I'll try again tomorrow." I didn't sleep that night. Didn't open Jamie's door. Didn't open mine. I sat on the couch, eyes on the front door, light on, knife in hand. Nothing else happened. But the next night, at exactly 10:12 p.m., it returned. 3 slow knocks. I didn't move, didn't blink. My hands were shaking, phone frozen in my lap. I heard it again. You moved. The voice wasn't outside anymore. It was behind the closet door. Not shouting, not whispering, just stating a fact. Then, something brushed the inside of the door, scraping, dragging, and then, softly, "Let me be where you are. You always let me in." I sat like that for an hour. At some point, I must have fallen asleep from sheer adrenaline because I woke up to morning light creeping in through the blinds. I opened the closet. It was empty, but there was a dent on the inside of the door, palm-shaped, long-fingered. When I returned to the apartment, everything was fine. I wanted to believe it was over. I deep cleaned the place, burned sage, even though I don't really believe in that stuff. Replaced the mirror in the bathroom, took the door off Jamie's room entirely. But that night, just past 10, a notification appeared on my phone. It was a voice memo from an unknown contact. No name, just a file labeled "Listen." My thumb hovered over it. I didn't press play. I deleted it, or tried to. It kept reappearing. Every time I cleared it, it returned a few seconds later. I put the phone in the freezer, but I could still hear the voice. Not from the phone anymore, from the hallway. "You said you missed me." I locked the bedroom door, pulled furniture in front of it. From outside, the knock came again, softer than ever. Then it said my name, but it wasn't my voice. It was Jamie's. And Jamie had died 3 months ago. Car accident. She never came back from that trip. I hadn't moved out yet. I couldn't. I kept telling myself I needed more time to pack, more time to say goodbye. But the voice knew, and now it used her. "It's cold out here. Let me in." I stared at the door. It was just wood, metal, screws and a lock. But it felt thin, like paper, like breath could pass through it, like voices already had. And then, from the mirror above my desk, I saw movement. In the reflection, the door was open. A figure stood in the doorway, leaning slightly, smiling. But when I turned to look, the door was still closed, still locked, still silent. Now I avoid mirrors, avoid phones, avoid anything that might let it speak. Because I think that's how it travels. Not through space, but through recognition, through memory, through permission. And all it ever asks for is the same thing, over and over, night after night. Let me in.
I woke up to the sound of forks clinking. At first, I thought it was the neighbors. My building's old and the walls are paper thin. But then I realized the sound wasn't muffled. It was sharp, close, real. It was coming from my kitchen. The clock said 3:11 a.m. I live alone. I lay there, frozen, listening. Faint, scraping sounds, silverware against plates, the rustle of napkins, a soft cough. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, it sounded like dinner. But I hadn't had dinner. I hadn't set the table. I hadn't cooked anything since the morning. I reached slowly for my phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. Just black. Dead. I slipped out of bed, careful not to let the mattress creak, and moved barefoot toward the hall. From the corner of the bedroom, I could see just enough. The edge of the counter, the flicker of the stove light, and the back of a head. Someone was sitting at the kitchen table. Short, pale neck, dirty, shoulder-length hair, a blue flannel shirt. They were eating. Across from them sat someone else. Their head was turned. I couldn't see the face, but I saw a hand, swollen fingers, gripping a fork. The skin looked bruised, stretched, like it had been soaking in water for hours. I ducked back into the room, heart pounding so loud it buzzed in my ears. I checked the window, still locked. I checked the door, still chained. I grabbed a kitchen knife from the drawer by my bed. Yeah, I kept one there. Don't ask. When I looked back down the hallway, they were still there, eating. Calm, mechanical, like it was their house. I considered calling the cops, but I knew how that would go. I hadn't seen anyone break in. Nothing was stolen. They'd be gone before anyone got here. So I did something really fucking stupid. I stepped into the hallway. The scraping of forks stopped. Both heads turned, slowly, perfectly in sync. I froze. Neither of them spoke. I noticed now that their plates were empty. Not just clean, polished, as if they'd licked them. One of them smiled at me. His teeth were too small, too even, like tiny pins set in pale gums. The woman reached for her glass, filled with something thick and black, and drank. She never broke eye contact. And then she said quietly, like we were old friends, "Do you have dessert?" I ran. Didn't even grab shoes, just sprinted out of the apartment and down the stairs barefoot, 3 flights in the dark. I waited in the 24-hour laundromat across the street for the rest of the night. I didn't call anyone. I didn't go back until sunrise. When I did, the apartment was empty. No plates, no glasses, but 2 chairs were pulled out from the table, and there were greasy fingerprints on the fridge door. I cleaned everything, scrubbed the surfaces, locked the windows twice. I thought maybe it was a psychotic break. But then, the next night, at exactly 3:11 a.m., I woke up to the smell of food, stew, potatoes, something meaty, something heavy, and distant voices from the kitchen. Not angry, not loud, just hungry. I didn't move at first. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding in rhythm with the faint clatter of dishes. I could smell roasted garlic, burnt butter, something like stew. My stomach turned, not from hunger, but from confusion, revulsion. It was the smell of food that shouldn't be there, prepared by hands I didn't invite. I listened. There were 4 distinct voices this time. One of them hummed softly between bites. Another muttered to itself. Their words were muffled, watery, like someone speaking through a mouthful of fluid. I sat up slowly and picked up my phone. The screen stayed black, just like the night before. I grabbed the same knife from the drawer and stepped into the hallway, half expecting them to be gone, for everything to vanish the second I looked. They didn't. There were 4 people at the table, each in different clothes now. One wore a moth-eaten sweater, sleeves too long. One sat shirtless, bones outlined beneath gray skin. Another had hair that looked painted on, a fake wig dipped in oil. The woman from the first night sat facing the wall, whispering something to a napkin she held tight in her lap. One of them turned and looked right at me. He didn't blink. His lips moved, but the sound didn't reach me. Then another one looked, and another, and then all four turned at once, heads rotating too smoothly, like ball joints instead of necks. They didn't move from their chairs. They didn't speak, but one of them raised a finger and pointed to the empty fifth chair. It was set now. A clean, white plate, a silver fork, a glass filled with something thick and red, and a handwritten note placed neatly beside it. You left before we finished. I ran again. This time, I left the building entirely, got in my car, and drove until daylight. No direction, no goal, just asphalt and empty gas stations. I slept in the car. I came back the next evening, exhausted, desperate, hungry. Everything in the apartment was where I left it, except the fridge. Inside was a white plastic container. No label. I opened it. Stew. Still warm. I didn't eat it. I dumped it down the sink. And that's when the pipes started groaning. Long, slow, metallic moans that echoed up from the drain like something in pain or something crawling upward. The apartment filled with the smell again. Roasted garlic, burnt butter, decay. At 3:11 a.m., the power cut out. Total darkness. No hum from the fridge. No streetlights. Then I heard movement. Not in the kitchen. Behind me. Breathing. Not heavy. Fast and shallow. Like someone excited. Close. I turned. The hallway was empty, but all the chairs at the table were turned toward me. I ran again. This time, I left the building entirely, got in my car and drove until daylight. No direction, no goal, just asphalt and empty gas stations. I slept in the car. I came back the next evening, exhausted, desperate, hungry. Everything in the apartment was where I left it, except the fridge. Inside was a white plastic container. No label. I opened it. Stew. Still warm. I didn't eat it. I dumped it down the sink. And that's when the pipes started groaning. Long, slow, metallic moans that echoed up from the drain like something in pain or something crawling upward. The apartment filled with the smell again. Roasted garlic, burnt butter, decay. At 3:11 a.m., the power cut out. Total darkness. No hum from the fridge, no streetlights. Then I heard movement. Not in the kitchen.
Behind me. Breathing. Not heavy. Fast and shallow. Like someone excited. Close. I turned. The hallway was empty. But all the chairs at the table were turned toward me. I left again. It's been a week. I stay in motels. I eat at diners. I don't use forks if I can help it. I've thrown out everything metal. but I can feel them spreading. Once I saw someone on the subway licking a spoon slowly while staring right at me. Another time I heard chewing in the ventilation system of a hotel bathroom. This morning I woke up to find a napkin folded neatly on my pillow. And it had something written on it, in Greece. You didn't eat. So now we're still hungry.
It was just after 9 p.m. when I heard the first knock. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that says, "I'm here and I'm angry." It was the kind of knock a child makes. Quick, uneven, unsure. I was sitting on the couch, half asleep, a rerun on the TV and a beer going warm in my hand. The day had been long. Work stress, bills, too many hours in traffic. I wasn't expecting visitors. My son, Mason, was supposed to be asleep, but the knock didn't come from the front door. It came from the back, the glass sliding door that opened out onto the deck. That door led to the backyard, fenced, quiet, backed by woods that swallowed light even in the day. No neighbors had access to it. No one used that path. And yet, the knock came again. Lighter, more desperate. I stood up, heart already beating faster than it should have, pulled the curtain aside just enough to peek. A small figure stood on the deck. A boy. Short, barefoot, in blue pajamas, the kind Mason wore. The hood of his little zip-up was pulled over his head. He wasn't facing the door. He was turned sideways, his face cast in shadow. He was just standing there, completely still. For a moment, I thought it was Mason. I called his name through the glass. No reaction. I unlocked the door and slid it open a few inches. Cold air rushed in. Mason? The boy turned slowly, and I saw the side of his face. Pale. Smooth. Too smooth. And the expression. It wasn't confused. It wasn't scared. It was blank. Hollow. Mason's in bed, the boy said in a voice that didn't belong to a child. Not just flat, but wrong in a way I can't explain. Like a computer guessing what a kid should sound like. I shut the door. Hard. Locked it again. The boy didn't flinch, didn't move. He just stared through the glass. His eyes, now visible, were deep brown, exactly like my son's. I turned and ran down the hallway, hard in my throat. Mason's door was shut. I opened it slowly. He was in bed, breathing soft, arms tucked under his blanket, his little chest rising and falling the way it always had. I leaned down and whispered his name. He stirred but didn't wake. I kissed his forehead. It was warm. He was real, alive, safe. So what the hell was standing outside? I went back to the living room. The deck was empty. No footprints. Just frost on the boards where the boy had stood, melted slightly in the shape of two small bare feet. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I installed motion lights outside. Cameras, floodlights. I told myself it was just a messed up prank, maybe some teenager with too much time and a cruel idea. I even checked with the neighbors. No one had seen anything. But that evening, right at 9:03 p.m., the lights flicked on. I checked the monitor. He was back, standing in the same place, same clothes, same blank stare. But this time, he was looking directly into the camera. He lifted one hand, pressed it to the glass, and whispered something. I couldn't hear it through the feed, but I could read his lips. Let me be him. I shut off the monitor, I went to Mason's room, still sleeping. But now, his face was turned toward the wall, and on his nightstand sat a small stone, one I didn't recognize, smooth, black, the size of a large coin, cold to the touch. I asked Mason the next morning where it came from. He shrugged. I woke up with it in my hand, he said. Did you give it to me? I said no. He looked confused, then said something that made my blood run cold. I saw myself in the hallway last night. I forced a smile. In a dream? He shook his head. No, I wasn't sleeping yet. I looked at the door, and I saw me, but not me. He smiled too much. The following night, I stayed up again. 9:03. Lights triggered. I didn't check the monitor this time. I just walked to the sliding door and pulled the curtain aside. He was closer, standing inches from the glass, face nearly touching it. His lips were moving, but no sound came out. Then he placed his hand flat on the door, and slowly, he mouthed, "He doesn't need you anymore." I slammed the curtain shut. There was a knock, not the hesitant kind. A firm, heavy bang, like someone trying the strength of the glass. Then came the whisper, so close I felt it in my skull. "Let me in, Dad." That wasn't my son's voice, but it used his rhythm, his fear. It mimicked the way Mason sounds when he's about to cry. I didn't answer. I backed into the hallway, picked up Mason from his bed, and drove. We stayed in a motel for 2 nights. Nothing happened there. No knocks, no voices. Nothing followed us. When we came back, the stone was gone. But now, every night at 9:03, I hear the knock again. Sometimes on the door, sometimes on the window, sometimes from inside the walls. Mason doesn't talk about it anymore. But once, as I tucked him in, he whispered something I didn't understand until much later. If he ever gets in, you won't know which one of us to love. I asked what he meant. He just rolled over and said nothing. Last week, Mason came home from school wearing a different hoodie. Not new, not dirty, just unfamiliar. I asked where he got it. He said, "It was already in my cubby." I checked. His old one was gone. The new one smells like frost and soil. Now, every time he calls me Dad, I listen closely. Every time he hugs me, I try to feel the weight of his hands. Every time he sleeps, I check to make sure he's breathing like Mason. Because one of these nights, I'm afraid I'll wake up and find 2 of him, and I'll have to choose which one to let in.
You locked the door. You turned off the lights. You stayed quiet, but they still found a way in. Some of them wear your memories like a mask. Some of them eat at your table. Some wait outside in a shape you recognize. So next time you hear that knock, just ask yourself one thing. Are you sure it's really them?